What is going on, college sports fans? Welcome back to another video. I hope you guys are having a great day. Today I have for you guys my first bracketology of 2022. This is where I make my own bracket and seed teams based on where I think they would be seeded if the season ended today and the tournament was about to start. And we're going to come out with these every single Monday up until the bracket is released, and then we're going to have some bracket predictions out as well. So that coming every Monday along with a bunch of other college basketball content as well. So make sure you guys subscribe if you guys are new. We're getting really close to 1,000 subs. Help me out. I'd appreciate it a lot. And yeah, let's get right into my first bracketology. Alright guys, starting off our bracketology, we have our West region, and our number one overall seed is Auburn. And you could have Gonzaga here, and I wouldn't really argue with you. I think that they're 1A and 1B at this point, but to me, Auburn has been the more impressive team just because they do play in the harder conference. And I think even though that one of their losses has come recently in overtime to Arkansas, I just don't fault them too much just because the loss was recent. I still think overall Auburn has been the more impressive team this season. So I have them as my number one overall seed. At the 16 seed that they would be facing either Cal State, Long Beach University, or Yale, whoever were to win that game to get this seed. Playing at the 8 seed, I have St. Mary's, and they lost a game recently, and St. Mary's can be a rangy team. I could see them jumping up a few spots before March. I could see them dropping down even a few spots before March, depending what happens there in the West Coast Conference there with San Francisco and also Gonzaga. We'll see how they perform in the West Coast Conference tournament, and that could really bump them up. Maybe it could bump them down, but right now I have them sitting there at a 8 seed. At our 9 seed, that St. Mary's would be facing first round. I do have Notre Dame, and they have an impressive win over Kentucky early in the year. I think that they will make the tournament, even though it is a weak ACC conference this year. I do think Notre Dame is one of those teams in the ACC that will make the tournament based on that one good win against Kentucky that they do have, and they've also just been winning a decent amount of games here recently as well in the ACC. So I do think they will make the tournament. I don't think they're going to get too high of a seed. I have them as a 9 right now. At our 5 seed in the West region, I do have UCLA, and I had them drop a little bit. I did have them as a 3 seed before this week, but they have just not been looking like the same UCLA recently. And then you put that together with earlier losses to Gonzaga by a huge margin. I think they lost to Gonzaga by like 20 points. Weren't really competing with them all that well. I just couldn't bring myself to give them any higher of a seed than a 5 seed here. And hey, they're another team. They can be a little bit rangy here before March. I could see them jumping up a couple more. But if they keep playing like they did this past week, then I think they might even drop down even more. But they're still a dangerous team. I mean, we've seen they made the Final Four last year from an 11 seed. So still a dangerous team. I have them here at a 5. At our 12 seed, we have the Ohio Bobcats, and man, this Ohio team is looking pretty good. I'm pretty sure they're not first in their conference right now, and they're probably going to have to win their conference to make the tournament. So I think they can do it though. This is kind of a prediction since they're in second in their conference right now, but I do think that they have a chance to win their conference championship there in the MAC. I think number 1 is Toledo right now. So this spot could go to Toledo or Ohio. I'm not sure who's going to win that conference. I'm predicting it to be Ohio. I think that they are a very good team, so that's why I have Ohio here at 12. At our 4 seed in this region is tough, man. We got UCLA as a 5. That's a tough out right there for a 5 seed, and Texas here at our 4 seed. I mean, they play in a very, very tough Big 12 conference, and I debated maybe giving them a 3 seed. They can definitely jump up. They had a good week. They beat Kansas at home this week. That is a good win. And yeah, I mean, that is a tough out at a 4 seed right there as well. And you're going to see in this entire video, every single region has some tough outs, all the way up until like the 11 seeds. There are some dangerous teams Especially since we've had such a crazy year in college basketball. I don't think that there's any clear favorite. I think that there's so many teams that have the possible chance of winning the championship, and it's just crazy, man. And out our 13 seed, I have Montana State. I have them winning their conference, and I think that they have good control of their conference right now. So I'm pretty confident that Montana State can get it done, but who knows? In the conference tournaments, anything can happen, especially in March Madness basketball. So, but right now, I have Montana State winning that conference and getting in out of 13. At our 6th seed, I have Arkansas jumping up a lot. I mean, they've been on my radar the past few weeks. They beat my team, West Virginia, in the Big 12 SEC in the Big 12 SEC Challenge game. And, they upset Auburn, who came into Fayetteville and lost in overtime. So that was a crazy game, and that's going to definitely help their case. I have them as a 6 right now. They're another team. They are another team that can really jump and fall depending on what happens. But they're a hot team right now, and I have them going up against another hot team right now. And a lot of people might not have them in their brackets, but I'm predicting Rutgers is going to make the tournament, man, because they've been playing so amazing recently. I mean, they beat Ohio State and Wisconsin Ohio State was at Rutgers, but they beat Wisconsin on the road both this week. So those are two huge wins in the same week, especially at this time of year in mid-February. That's when you want to get those big wins, man. So I'm rewarding Rutgers right now. I'm giving them an 11 seed, but they are a tough out at an 11. And Arkansas is another hot team. These two teams would go at it. I guarantee you that 6-11 game right there would be a banger. So I had to match them up. That would be an awesome game. Their 3 seed here in this region is Baylor. So two top Big 12 teams, Texas and Baylor, in this region. And if Baylor gets their top guys back, they're going to be dangerous, man. So I would not want to see Baylor in my region at a 3 or a 4 seed, just because they had injuries, and that's kind of why they're not a 1 seed. So definitely a tough out there at a 3 seed. I would not want to be Texas State, who I have winning their conference and winning the Sun Belt there and cracking it in the tournament here at a 14 seed. At our 7 seed, I do have Murray State. I gave them a pretty high seed for their conference, but they have been dominating. I'm pretty sure that they are 24-2 or 22-2. Their record is something like that. I know that they only have 2 losses, and Murray State has just been balling. If you haven't seen this Murray State team play this year, definitely go give them a watch. They are going to be dangerous in the tournament, so I rewarded them here with a 7 seed. And the 10 seed that they will be facing is Boise State. There are 3 top teams there in the Mountain West Conference this year, and Boise State, you could argue, is the 3rd best out of the 3. At least in my opinion, they are, but that doesn't mean that they aren't good enough to compete in these games. I definitely think Boise State will make the tournament, and they look pretty dangerous right now. So I have Boise State coming in there at a 10 seed. At our 2 seed for this region, I do have Duke, and I might get some hate for putting Duke at a 2 seed, but because they lost to Virginia by a crazy buzzer beater. That was a crazy game this week, and they also do play in a weaker conference in the ACC this year. ACC usually one of the top conferences. This year it's not. It's one of the worst conferences, probably the 2nd worst conference in the Power 12. You could argue the Pac-12 is worse, but yeah, I'm still giving them the 2 seed, man. Early wins against Gonzaga and the Kentucky. They beat Kentucky in the opening game of the season. I know a lot has changed since the opening game of the season, but those still hold weight to me. Overall, as a season, I do still think Duke is a 2 seed at this point in time. So I'm giving it to them. And, if they lose again here in the next couple weeks, or they just don't look that good, then I will move them down next week. But for now, I have them here at a 2 seed, and I will have them face Grand Canyon. And I think Grand Canyon is actually like 3rd or 4th in their conference right now, but I'm kind of predicting a little bit of an upset coming out here in their conference tournament, because I think Grand Canyon is a very good team, and we've seen that last year. And, I really do think that Grand Canyon has a good chance of winning their conference. So, hey, I'm predicting a little bit bold here, but I have them coming in here at a 15 seed. All right, in our second region, we do have the Midwest region, and our second number 1 seed is Gonzaga. And I kind of spoiled that earlier whenever I was talking about you could have Auburn or Gonzaga as the top overall seed. But of course, I have Gonzaga as our second number 1 seed, and I do have them facing Towson as a 16 seed. Not much to say about Towson. I do think that they will win their conference, but just not too good, so I gave them the 16 seed. Our 8 seed in this region, I do have Xavier, and they could be a fun one to watch there as an 8 seed. That 8-9 matchup between Xavier and Oregon would be a super fun one. Oregon is another team that is getting hot recently and could start to heat things up there in the Pac-12 if they start beating some of these top guys. I'm pretty sure that I think they play Arizona this Saturday, so that could be a good one, and College Game Day is going to be there. If Oregon can beat them, they might bump up here next week when I have this updated bracketology next Monday. So, yeah, Xavier versus Oregon as the 8-9. That would be an awesome matchup. At our 5 seed in the Midwest region, I do have Tennessee. And I debated maybe moving them up a little bit here. They have Kentucky this week, so we'll see how they perform. Even if they lose, they could stay the same or even move up depending on how they compete with Kentucky, because I'm very high on Kentucky this year. And at our 12 seed, they have a tough out at the 12 seed, Loyola Chicago, who's actually on the brink of maybe not making the tournament for me. But, they still have the upper hand in their conference. So if they win their conference, they're going to get in no matter what. But, yeah, that's an interesting matchup, because if you guys have been watching college basketball, which I assume, most of you have, Loyola Chicago in 2018, they made the Final Four. One of their matchups were against Tennessee, where they hit a crazy shot. They just went on that Cinderella run and beat Tennessee when Tennessee was a 3 seed. So maybe Tennessee looking for some revenge, or maybe history could repeat itself and Loyola Chicago could get another upset over Tennessee. So, hey, that would be an interesting matchup, a fun storyline that has some history. And, yeah, I had to kind of match them up a little bit, But our 4 seed coming in here, we got Michigan State, and I'm kind of high on Michigan State this year. I think they have some potential. They could rise or fall for me here, just like a lot of these teams, depending on how the Big Ten plays out. But right now, I think I like them at a 4 seed. I think that is a good spot for them. At our 13 seed, I do have South Dakota State, and I do have them winning their conference. Not too much to say about South Dakota State. I'm not too high on them as far as upset potential. But our 6th seed up in the top right, we do have Marquette. And Marquette is a dangerous team come tournament time. I think that they are going to be a very good tournament team with Shaka Smart there. We all know Shaka Smart, he made the Final Four with VCU, had a stint with Texas. He also got upset last year by, who was it, Abilene Christian, whenever he was coaching Texas last year. Left Texas, Chris Beard took over there, went to Marquette, and he's doing pretty good there at Marquette. I've been impressed with Shaka Smart, and I have them at a 6 seed right now. Speaking of coaches, we have Rick Pitino's Iona team here at an 11 seed, and it is kind of high for Iona, but they have been playing some very good basketball, and they do have a win over Alabama this year, which is a very good win for a team like Iona. So I do think that they will win their conference and get in. Will they get an 11 seed? Maybe I could see them getting anywhere from an 11 to a 13 seed, as long as they finish the season as strong as they've been playing. So at our 3 seed, I do have the Wisconsin Badgers, and I'm kind of high on the Wisconsin Badgers. The only thing I am worried about is, are they a one-man team? They have a really good player. I kind of see them as maybe like a Sweet 16 team, but that's kind of as far as they go. Maybe the Elite Eight if they can hit some good shots, maybe like in a crazy game. But I don't know. I have Wisconsin here at a 3 seed. Another team, they could drop. They could go up. I had them at a 2 seed until they lost to Rutgers at home. I was very shocked by that one. Rutgers is a very hot team for me right now. So they dropped a little bit for me, but they could definitely get back up to a 2 seed if they can continue to keep playing better. But right now, 3 seed for Wisconsin. I have them facing Liberty. And I do think Liberty is going to win their conference. They look pretty good, and I don't really see much competition in their conference right now for them. So I think they will get in. I have them here at a 14 seed. At our 7 seed, I do have Davidson, and Davidson is one of my favorite sleeper teams this tournament. Davidson has been playing really good basketball lately, and they're really fun to watch too. So I have them and Murray State both at our 7 seeds up to this point, and I'm rewarding these teams. They might not play in the best conferences, but hey, Davidson, I think who they beat this year? They beat Alabama this year, and I like Davidson a lot this year. And I have them facing Miami. I think that would be a fun matchup. Miami, one of the only ACC teams getting in. We've seen Duke earlier and Notre Dame, and now we have Miami. There's not many ACC teams I have getting in, but yeah, Miami is getting in. They have a tough matchup there against Davidson in the 7 versus 10. That would be a fun one to watch. And our 2 seed for this region is Kansas. I had to give a Big 12 team a 2 seed just because the Big 12 is so chaotic. And by the end of the year, it could be Kansas, it could be Baylor, it could be Texas Tech, it could even be Texas. So I'm not sure who's going to get it, but I can almost guarantee you that the one Big 12 team is going to at least get a 2 seed. Maybe even 2 teams could get 2 seed, but I have Kansas here at this 2 seed, and a very tough out for a 15 seed in my opinion. But even though they're not currently winning their conference, I think they're second in their conference. I do have Oakland as my 15 seed here, and I'm a little bit high on Oakland. They've competed with some great Power 5 teams this year. I think they beat Oklahoma State this year earlier in the year, and they have competed with some of these teams, and I like Oakland a lot. I don't think that they're going to be able to beat Kansas, but they are definitely a tough out for a 15 seed. That is for sure. All right, let's move on to our East region. I do have Arizona as my number 1 seed in this region. And to be honest with you, man, I'm not too high on Arizona this year. They play in the Pac-12. I'm not too high on the Pac-12. But Arizona, I can't ignore them. They've been playing some good basketball, and they only have 2 losses on the season, so I have to reward them here with a 1 seed. But if they get a couple more losses this season, they could drop maybe even to a 3 seed, because I'm not that high on Arizona this year. But right now, I do have them as a 1 seed. I could see them making a deep run, but I'm just not. I'm just not a huge believer in Arizona at this point in the year. At our 16 seed that they would be facing is Norfolk State. Have them winning their conference and getting in there at a 16 seed. At our 8 seed, I do have Wyoming, and Wyoming is a very hot team. I could see Wyoming or San Francisco, really. We're going to talk about both these teams here together. Both these teams are really good, and it's kind of interesting because they're both over there in the West Coast, and Arizona is also in the West Coast. Whoever wins that 8-9 seed, I could definitely see have huge upset potential over Arizona in the round of 32 in the second round of March Madness. So that would be a really fun one. I'm very high on Wyoming. San Francisco has a good NBA player, a future NBA player on their squad, but I think I'm very high on Wyoming. I think that they would win that 8-9. That would be a very fun 8-9 matchup. And I do think that they would have big time upset potential over a team like Arizona in the second round. At our 5 seed, and I debated where to put Alabama, because Alabama is one of the rangiest teams in this entire bracket, but I ended up putting them at a 5 seed. They are so rangy, man, because they have a win over Gonzaga this year, which is like, okay, you have a huge win over a top seed, but then they have losses over teams like Iona, and Iona's a great team, but like, see how rangy they are. But I ended up putting them out of 5. They are so rangy. They are one of the rangiest teams in this entire bracket. They could go up more. They could go down a lot still. But right now I have them out of 5. I think that's a good place for them. And they will play the winner of Iowa or Iowa State. And Iowa and Iowa State are both like kind of on the brink of making the tournament for me. So I was like, you know what? Why not put them as like some of the last 4 in, make them play each other to get in the tournament, and it is a rivalry, in-state rivalry game. So that would be a very fun matchup for me to watch. So I had to put it on there. I think it would be a really cool one to see. At our 4 seed, a very tough out at 4. Here's a team that I'm pretty high on right now, and that is Illinois. They've been looking very good, and I know that they lost to Purdue this week, but I still think Illinois is a very dangerous team come tournament time. We all know that they have Kofi Coburn, and he is an absolute stud. This would be a really this is a very sneaky 4 seed in my opinion in this tournament, and our 13 seed that I would have them face is North Texas, and North Texas has some upset potential. I don't know if they have upset potential against Illinois, but out of 13 seed against some of these 4 seeds, I think depending on where they get seeded, could have some upset potential here in the first round as a 13 seed. So that could be around a 13 seed. If North Texas ends up with like a 12 seed, definitely look for an upset pick with them, because North Texas can be a dangerous team. At our 6 seed here, another rangy team, Ohio State. They could go up a lot, they could go down a lot. They had a lot of games canceled or postponed due to COVID, and they just haven't like played as many games recently. But yeah, earlier in the year, Ohio State, they have big wins over Duke, and they were looking like one of the top teams in the entire nation. E.J. Liddell was looking like a player of the year candidate, and they were just looking really, really good, but they kind of fell off recently. Right now I have them as a 6 seed. They could jump back up. Like I said earlier in the year, or not earlier this week, they had a loss to Rutgers, but I'm pretty high on Rutgers myself, so Ohio State here out of 6, they could move up and down. Them and Alabama, both very, very rangy teams. At our 11 seed that they will be facing, I do have BYU, and BYU is one of these teams that they almost didn't make the tournament for me this week, but I'm going to put them in this time. We'll see how they do here this next week, and we'll see if they still are in my bracket, but I do think BYU is a pretty good team. I think that they will perform well. I think that a 6-11 matchup will be entertaining. But yeah, BYU, they're kind of on the brink for me right now. At our 3 seed in this conference, I do have Villanova, and that is a tough 3. There is a tough 3 and a tough 4 in this region for Arizona. So I don't know, but yeah, Villanova is a very good team, and you could tell by their record, they have some losses, but they played some very, very tough competition this year. Earlier in the year, they did play UCLA, they played Gonzaga, they played all these top teams, and that's why they have a good amount of losses on their record. But in the Big East, which is a tough Big East conference this year, they have been playing very well, so I rewarded them. I'm giving them a 3 seed. And the Big East is up and down, man. A lot of these Big East teams, they move like every week. So we'll see. Right now I have Villanova at a 3. And I have them facing Chattanooga at a 14 seed. And that is a tough 14 seed. That's probably the best 14 seed that I have. Chattanooga is a very good team. So I have them winning their conference and getting into the bracket there. At our 7 seed in this region, I do have TCU, and TCU is a pretty good team this year in the Big 12, and I think probably the most underrated team in the Big 12, because when you think of the Big 12, you think of the top 4 teams: Kansas, Baylor, Texas Tech, and Texas. And then you might think Iowa State, maybe Oklahoma's close to getting in. But TCU, in my opinion, is better than Oklahoma, and they're better than Iowa State. They're the clear 5th best Big 12 team to me. But that doesn't mean that they're bad just because they're the 5th best team in the Big 12. The Big 12 is a very good conference, and I do have TCU here at a 7 seed. And they will be facing a 10 seed and San Diego State. San Diego State was a very good team last year, and a lot of people thought, man, San Diego State's going to make a run. Last year, I think that they brought back a majority of their players, but yeah, at a 10 seed, they could be a tough out, and I have them facing TCU there at the 7-10. At our 2 seed for this region, I do have Providence, the top team in the Big East right now. Providence is playing very, very well, and I've been impressed with them. They've been one of the more surprising teams this year because they did not make the tournament last year, and now they're jumping all the way up to a 2 seed for me at this point in the year. So, man, Providence, one of the more surprising teams this year. Look out for them come tournament time. Yeah, very good team. And I have them facing Winthrop. I have Winthrop winning the conference and making it in here at a 15 seed. All right, guys, moving on to our 4th and final region in our bracketology. We have the South region, and I do have Kentucky as my number 1 seed here in this region. And I have them facing either New Orleans University or Southern University, depending on who would win that game. But Kentucky, I'm very high on them whenever they do have their full team on board, no injuries. Oscar Tshiebwe is an absolute stud, and I look forward to seeing what he's going to do in the tournament. I do think Kentucky deserves to have a number 1 seed up at this point. We'll see how they perform this week because they got Bama and Tennessee, I'm pretty sure, this week. Should be some fun games. If they win both of those, then they're definitely locking up a 1 seed for me next week. And yeah, look out for them come tournament time, man. At our 8 seed in this region, I do have Seton Hall, and Seton Hall is a sleeper team there in the Big East. Them, Creighton, Xavier, they all can be sneaky. I'm not sure if any of them will go past the Sweet 16, but I think at least one of them will make the Sweet 16 and will make a little bit of a run. Seton Hall, another team kind of like Ohio State, they got off to a really good start of the season, but then they had a little bit of COVID issues, and they also kind of slowed down here recently. So I have Seton Hall dropping down here to an 8 seed, but they could definitely move up. They could definitely move down. At our 9 seed, I do have a very, very tough out at a 9 seed. I talked about Wyoming earlier there in the Mountain West, and we also talked about Boise State. Those were my 3. My 3rd one is Colorado State. Colorado State has been on a tear this year, and definitely one of the more surprising teams this year. They've been playing great. I have them here at a 9 seed. Depending on whoever wins the Mountain West tournament, I'm guessing it's going to be one of those 3 teams. They are going to be hot, and they are definitely going to be one of the favorites for me as a sleeper team to make a run in the March Madness tournament because they are going to be hot, and I could definitely see Colorado State being that team. So look out for the Rams here in March Madness. At our 5 seed in this region, I do have UConn. So we have another Big East team here coming in. And UConn has been up and down this year, but they do have a big win in double overtime earlier in this year to Auburn, or against Auburn. So you can kind of see, their potential of what they can do. And UConn just has a really good squad. I have them here at a 5 seed, and they're pretty rangy themselves. So like I said, a lot of these Big East teams, even Villanova, they kind of move around for me up and down every single week just because when they play each other, it goes crazy. But they are all very good teams, and I have UConn here at a 5 seed. At our 12 seed, we do have the winner of North Carolina or SMU. I think that would be an interesting matchup. SMU kind of making the cut here because they got a big win over Houston. this past week, so we'll see if they can keep it up. If SMU starts losing again, though, or starts losing a little bit this next week or the next couple weeks, they could get bumped out of the tournament. They're one of the last four in here in the play-in game versus North Carolina at this point. We'll see. We'll see how they perform here in the next few weeks, but that's where I have them right now. Speaking of Houston, I have Houston here at a 4 seed, and they moved down. They got 2 losses this past week, and I was kind of high on Houston. They played some very good games, but the AAC is just not very strong this year. I mean, we expected Memphis to be very good with the Mooney Bates and their top recruits that they got this year, but Memphis has been disappointing. Houston has been good, but with what competition, really? And they're starting to drop for me since they got 2 losses this past weekend to Memphis and also SMU. So, yeah, Houston here at a 4 seed, but they can definitely continue to drop for me just because they haven't played the best of competition this year and they don't play in the best conference. At our 13 seed here, I do have Vermont. I think Vermont could be a pretty good team. Not my favorite 13 seed here in this tournament, but they could have potential for an upset depending on the matchup. So look out for Vermont. Number 6 here in this region, I do have USC, and USC, they're one of the tougher ones to seed because they have a good record. They're ranked, but they play in the Pac-12. How much competition are they really getting? We'll see come Pac-12 tournament time and the rest of this year what USC is really about. But right now I'm going to keep them here at a 6 seed. At our 11 seed, I do have Indiana, another one of Big Ten teams. Them and Rutgers are kind of similar to me. They both kind of get some big wins there in the Big Ten, but they don't have the best of records. I have them both here at 11 seeds in my bracket. So that's where I have Indiana. Our 3 seed is I'm not going to say my favorite 3 seed because all these 3 seeds are tough. This is a very deep bracket. A lot of teams can win the tournament this year. And Texas Tech, a very good team. I have been impressed with them. They got Kevin O'Banner, who played for Oral Roberts last year through the transfer portal. They have some really good players on their team, and they're well coached. They beat Kansas this year. I think they split with Kansas this year. I think they split with Baylor this year, or I think they beat Baylor, and they haven't faced them the second time yet. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, Texas Tech, they're building a heck of a resume for themselves. And, they have potential. Right now I have Kansas at the 2 seed, but they have potential to get that Big 12 2 seed that is almost guaranteed to happen. So we'll see if Texas Tech can bump up and snag that one. I do have them facing Wagner. Not my favorite of teams this year. Well, Wagner is actually pretty good. I was thinking of Winthrop for a second. Wagner is actually a sneaky team, and I don't like the matchup for them against Texas Tech. I don't think Texas Tech would get upset in the first round to a 14 seed, but if they got this Vermont spot versus Houston, I could definitely see Wagner beating a team like Houston in the first round. So Wagner could be sneaky depending on the matchup. They are a pretty good team. At our 7 seed, we do have the LSU Tigers. Another team, they got off to a really hot start. They were undefeated. Got into conference play, kind of cooled down. Who they really play in the non-con. I have them at a 7 right now. We'll see how they finish out there in the SEC. At our 10 seed versus LSU, I do have Creighton. They are another one of those Big East teams that just kind of goes up and down every single week for me. Right now I have them as a 10 seed. They do have a ton of potential. I think they made the Sweet 16 last year, I'm pretty sure. Creighton is a pretty good team, so we'll see how they finish out the year there in the Big East. At our 2 seed for this region, and I kind of have them, Purdue is my top 2 seed at this point. Purdue has potential. They could win the national championship this year with Jaden Ivey, Travion Williams. All those boys, man. They have a solid all-around team, and they have shot makers, man, especially Jaden Ivey. He is a beast. So Purdue, I would not want to play them first round. Right now, I do have Navy winning their conference and getting in. They are in like a head-to-head battle with, man, I can't think of who they are battling right now for their conference, but it's a close one. I'm predicting Navy gets it and gets this 15 draw in the tournament. So that is going to do it for my bracketology. I think I'm going to call this series Bracketology with Daniology, and I'm going to do this every Monday once again. So make sure you guys subscribe. We're going to do this every single Monday up until the brackets are released. Then we're going to have our bracket predictions where we're going to make our bracket, and just a ton more college basketball content here coming on the channel. So make sure you guys subscribe, almost to 1,000. Help your boy out. And yeah, it's been your boy Danny, and I'm out.